Welcome to Lesson 10, Moving and Stretching Members of the SDS2 Getting Started series. As mentioned in an earlier video, with SDS2, if a plan erection view or elevation erection view is moved, the members will not move with that erection view. Another point about SDS2 when it comes to moving and stretching members, the members are not associated. Which means that if I have a sloping member with some intermediate beams that are attached to it, if that sloping member is moved down, for example, all the members that attach into that sloping member will not be moved with that member. You will have to perform a separate move stretch operation. I'm going to open up our second floor view. So where is this move stretch command located? Obviously under the drop down menu you can go to Model, Member, and you will see the move stretch command. If members are selected, when you right click you'll see that the move stretch members will appear. I'm going to move stretch these selected members. Let's start off with an anchor point, and then I'm going to move by a certain amount. Now of course I can go ahead and use my other point locators such as exact point and pick the second location for where these members are going to be moved to, but I'm going to introduce you to something called Dxdy. When you select a Dxdy point locator, you can go ahead and locate on top of your screen, which will open this little dialog box. Of course, when we're looking here in plan view on this screen, you can see that the X direction is going to be to the right and left, Y direction is going to be up and down, and Z is going to be in and out. Let's go ahead and move these members over 2 feet in the negative X direction. We now see that these members have moved over. When we look at the top of the screen, we'll be prompted for a confirmation. Is this correct? Yes or no? Of course, if I say no, the command will be canceled and the members will be moved back into their previous position. I'm now going to move on to how to stretch a member. Let's go ahead and zoom into this area right here. When I create an area box going from left to right, you'll notice that this little cube appears. This cube is 12 inches away from the end of the member. And what it does is it indicates that this end of the member, and only this end of the member, has been selected. Another method to establish a selection of these cubes is to use your filters, member ends. This allows me to come in and area select whether I go from left to right or right to left. I'm going to select only that member end. Let's go back to our default filter. So now that this one end, in this case the right end of this member, is selected, if I perform my move stretch command, I'm going to locate my first point, and then I'm going to indicate how far I'm going to move this point, and I'm going to use my Dxdy point locator. Now this Dxdy point locator works off of your screen coordinate system. So therefore, if I want to move to the left, that would be in the X direction, and I'm going to place in 2 foot. If I want to go up on the screen, that would be the Y, and Z of course would be in and out. So now when I go ahead and I select OK to that screen, you'll see that this member has now moved just the right end over 2 foot, leaving the left end in its anchored position. Once again, you're being asked to confirm whether or not you want to do this move. I'm going to go ahead and say no here. So what happens if I go ahead and I add to that selection the member itself? If I perform this move stretch command again, notice the entire member moves, even though that indicator is selected. Well, when you select a member, whether that indicator is selected or not, the system is going to say that both ends of that member are selected and therefore move the entire member over. I'm going to say no to confirming this particular move. Now the next operation I'm going to perform on my grid line 3. Let's go and set our filters on to member ends. Going from left to right, I'm going to create an area box around these members, at least a foot away. I want to point out our depth check. Looking at our depth check, we see that it is 1 foot into the screen and 1 foot out. Because it's 1 foot in, and I am actually on the center of this grid line 3, I am not able to go ahead and select that particular member end. Now I'm going to change my depth check-in to be 1 foot 1. One more time, let's do a selection. Notice now I'm able to select that member end for the member and profile. Why is this? Because depth check plays a part in this selection process. So if I were to come in here and perform a move stretch, and let's say for example I'm going to move this member up 24 inches in the Y direction, confirm yes, you will notice that now this member is sloped. All these members have been sloped to that new move point because I only selected one end. Let's go ahead and place those back into their previous position. Remember, there is not an undo here. Go ahead and say yes, and now those members are placed back into their original position. Next, let's turn off that member ends. This time I'm going to do another area box. Now you'll notice in this area box that the member profile is selected. We can see that it's in green. So therefore, when I perform this move stretch command like we did earlier, both ends of that member and profile are going to move up. Why? Because the member was selected, not just the member end, and therefore both ends are selected and the entire member is moved up. Let's go ahead and say no to the confirmation. Now, whenever you move a member, even if you move it back into its original position, SDS2 is going to require that these members go back through process so it can reevaluate all the data about that member. Now, how can you tell that this member is marked to go back through process? One method is to simply edit the member. We can see that it's marked for process. It says yes. Another method is when you turn to solids, you'll notice that the members that require processing are not turned to solid. That's because basically the system says I don't know what that data is going to be. Even though there was old data, it's ignoring that. So we need to go ahead and run these members back through process. Using my F5 shortcut key, I will process these members. We will see that they have now turned to solid.